problem with, like, you know, to define what the new technology is that's impacting interior architecture and interior design. So you first need to do that. So identify what the that area is, and then you need to identify what the problems are, right?
Yeah.
So what are some of the problems that that we'll actually face because of new technology? And then you'll propose some examples of different different examples and businesses or services that are actually then trying to tackle you know, that new technology problem that you've identified. So, you know, this thing you were just talking about, as in how can it actually benefit the future? How can it change it and everything else? Save that for your project 3.
Yeah.
Okay, so in project 3, what you'll do is that you'll actually propose an entrepreneurial idea. So, you know, you might go, okay, I'm doing all this research around new technology, and you'll identify some examples of how that's already being addressed. So, no, for example, there might be, in terms of new technology, that might be a new software that's become available for interior architects or whatever, or it might be about a new technology or a new process that means that construction changes. And so you want to kind of discuss how that's then impacting the industry. And the other part of your analysis should also show how well that example is doing it. So while the example that you've identified might say, we are actually bridging the gap between this new technology and practice, you might then say in your analysis, actually they're only doing it partially well, because while they're doing this part, they're completely neglecting this other area of how to bridge new technology. So while it might make it more efficient, it's not really considering how the impact of mental health on the people that are working in that area. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think the technology direction and maybe looking at how AI is influencing interior design or interior architecture practice is a really great direction to go.
Yeah.
So, and then I think if you look at, because you're kind of aiming for around 3,000 words, if it helps you, I would use the guide of trying to aim for 4 to 5 case studies to incorporate into your assignment. Use that as a guide, because if you aim for around 4 or 5 examples to bring into your project, then you'll be actually able to give some depth in your analysis of because what you want to be doing is describing what the problem is that example is addressing, and then how well what they're doing, and then how well they're doing it.
Yes.
Yeah. So they're the layers I would do it, as in, what is it? What is the problem? How are they, you know, what are they doing to address the problem? And then your analysis of whether or not, how well they're doing it.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, around, sorry, keep going.
I say I noted down.
Oh, good. Yeah, great. Great. So I think, yeah, I'm really excited that you've moved away from sustainability.
In fact, me and Hung choose technology, but Ami choose the sustainability, but they're not in here, so I don't know how to do it.
You've made the decision. But, you know, part of your, you know, you can still address sustainability within your analysis of the technology, because you could actually be saying the technology is trying to actually, you know, address sustainability issues, but the focus of your actual report is on identifying new technologies.
Yeah.
And so one of the problems the new technology might be addressing is sustainability, or a sustainability issue. So there can be overlap, you know, in those topic areas.
Oh yeah, but when we do like this, I just afraid it's not in the center of the subject, or it may go around.
Well, I think you can always find a way to relate it to the industry. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because AI technology is happening everywhere. and it will impact our industry as well. So you have to look at it specifically to our industry and go, okay, well, this is happening broadly, and this is the definition of what AI is. Or you might not only be dealing with AI, you might actually be looking at AI as one technology, and then there might be other technologies that you look at. Or you might go, I'm only looking at AI as one example of new technology, and then you've got 4 to 5 examples of that. And then, within AI, you might go, okay, well, this first example is actually dealing with sustainability, trying to address that problem with a new technology. AI might be looking at efficiency in the workplace. AI might be looking at experience design. AI might be looking at, how we understand material. There's a whole load of ways that you can look at how AI is being utilized to either streamline or to address different contemporary issues in society. But then you just have to relate it back to interior architecture and design.
It is my assignment is we focus on the problem and then we address them, or could we say about the trend of the AI in the interior architecture?
You start with that. Yeah, so you start with framing up the trend of AI. So that should be the beginning, almost as part of your executive summary, and your introduction should actually go the topic that we're focusing in on, and make that link back to your first project and say, as a group, we're actually really interested in the way new technology is impacting our industry. And then you would then describe, artificial intelligence, and actually give a definition for what that is, and then its different forms, like how that actually is now being expressed in society, like what the different technologies are. And then you go into what problems are actually examples of how AI are trying to either improve a problem that's been identified in society that relates directly to interior design or interior architecture. So you might actually be talking about, with the current context with the pandemic, that we're more remote than ever. And so for interior designers, you've got to find a way to actually connect with your clients, or you've got to try and connect with your suppliers or with contractors. And so how might AI bridge the gap between, your practice every day? So that might be a way that you look at it for the examples. But what you need to do with your AI is actually identify the problems around it, and then the solutions that these examples are then showing how they're addressing different problems within the industry. And then you're going to evaluate how successful the examples are. So your examples might be whole businesses, or they might be part of a business. Like, so there might be a business that actually has a multi-pronged offering. And so one part of their business might incorporate AI in some way to address a problem. And you can talk about, you might just introduce that business and say, but we're only interested in this part of the business because that's where they incorporate AI. And that's when you describe it. Whereas for another example, one of your other 4 or 5 examples might be for an entire business, and say, this entire business is all about AI. And this is how it's addressing this problem in interior architecture. And then again, you go and describe it, and then you evaluate how successful it's been in achieving what it's setting out to do. And then you bring that all together back in your, as part of your findings in your report, is to then summarize all of that and say, okay, these are the ones that have been most successful, and this is how they've been successful. This is where some of the gaps still are in this area, and opportunities for interior architecture, because that will help lead into project 3, which will be an individual assignment, which is for you then to propose an actual entrepreneurial idea for a new business that is, again, identifying a problem in our industry, and then that's how you're going to justify it. But that's why it's really important that you're working on something at the moment that is really interesting to you, like, that you're passionate about. That's why there's the link to project 1, because project 1 was all about you identifying your interests, your skills, your knowledge in the industry, and in our profession and our discipline. And so, you know, if new technology is definitely a part of your interest area, then that will help you through the whole semester.
Yeah, I got it.
Cool.
So,
and how are you going with your, I'm just mindful that the next group will be on in a minute, but how are you going with your project workflow? Do you have an example to show me?
Example, you mean is workflow with the group?
Yeah.
We like at first we will send a message with each other in the Facebook. Then we discuss about the problem. Then we change it, and we will have the example to prove our idea is the right direction. Then we will when all the people agree with that subject, we will find some of the example and information about the analysis and some of the videos to prove and to make it work.
Okay, just think about how you'll represent that graphic, like visually, because you might want to come up with a timeline or a calendar which shows where you've got key deadlines in being able to produce this project, and then maybe populate it with some of the information that you've just described. But just make sure you kind of have that, you have a think about how you're going to compile all that information that you've just described.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. All right, I'll jump onto the next group. Feel free to stay along or go, but I'll just go across to Siki and to Mac.